In 2006, the Florida Gators became only the second school to win both championships in college football and college basketball in the same season. They would continue that success for a couple years after in both sports, but would eventually see a fall off, and neither side has recovered since. In today's age, the SEC is stacked, and it won't be easy to transform a 79 overall team into a national championship team in only 12 seasons. With that being said, today I will be rebuilding the Florida Gators and hopefully bringing them back to the promised land. There wasn't much expectations these first couple years here in Gainesville, as for some reason we only come in with 8 total players on our roster, which means it's going to take some time to build this team up. Year 1 would go better than expected with a 7-man rotation, but recruiting wasn't treating me well, as we were losing recruits left and right all season long. We would finish the regular season with a 14-15 record. Zion Pullen would lead the way for us with 14 points per game and 2 steals per game. The only other bright spot on this team was freshman power forward Thomas Haw, who you guys might be hearing a lot from in this rebuild. We would take on Texas A&M in the first round of the conference tournament, which while we had a lead, it was never really in doubt for the Aggies, as they would go on to win by almost 10 points, effectively ending our first season as Florida Gators head coach. Sadly, we would miss out on all the high school stars we went after, and could only sign 4 World players and 1 JUCO, but these were much needed depth players. And to my surprise, this batch of guys would come out as the 20th ranked class, giving me some actual hope for next season and beyond. While we put together a decent recruiting class in year 1, I still don't think the expectations are going to be very high, as we only have 4 players above a 70 overall. And yeah, we're just going to have to pray for no injuries, because that could all but end our season before it even starts. The season wasn't going great, as following these back-to-back losses to ranked teams, we would fall to 8-12, which brings the number 2 ranked Tennessee Volunteers to town, making it 3 straight ranked games, all inside the top 12. And this game would start to get ugly pretty early, not the way the odds makers expected, as we would jump out to a 20-point lead over the number 2 ranked team in the nation. This would be enough to keep us from a collapse, and we would go on to win by 12 in front of our home crowd. But this win didn't give us the momentum boost I was hoping for, and we would finish the regular season 11-16, taking a step back from last season's finish. Thomas Haw would be our leading scorer for year 2, with 14 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, and 2.5 blocks per game. Our terrible season would put us up against the 15th ranked Kentucky Wildcats in the first round of the conference tournament. And I wish I could say we put up a good fight, but that would be a lie, as the Wildcats blew us out 74-57, once again ending our season early. As for recruiting in year 2, I was under the impression we did a much better job, signing 3 total ranked high school players and 2 5-star JUCO players. But somehow, this class will come out worse than last year, at rank 26. Nonetheless, I was excited for what year 3 had in store, as we finally had somewhat of a competent team that would come in as an 86 overall. Year 3 was looking like it could be our year to finally take the next step, as we would open the year 9-2 before conference play, with our only losses coming to Marquette and College of Charleston to open the season. Sitting at 11-3, we would have our toughest battles of the season, with Alabama first and then Tennessee right after. Not only would we fall to Alabama, but our luck against the Volunteers would seem to run out this year, as we would end up losing this game by almost 20 points. Sitting at 12-6, following a win against ranked Kentucky, this is putting us in a good shape to make the tournament. That was until we would lose our star player for the remainder of the season. Sadly, this loss would lead us downhill, and we finished slightly above 500 with a 16-14 record to finish the regular season. Thomas Haw would lead the way for us this year with his typical stat line, while senior shooting guard Riley Kugel put up a career year, 13.5 points per game. The Gators' best season under Yurtman doesn't have them set to make the tournament, but with our first round against LSU, Coach Yerp and the Gators were hoping to make a splash in this year's conference tournament. But that wouldn't be the case here, as we ended up falling in the first round of the tournament, effectively ending our season early once again. 3 seasons in, and Europe has a combined record of 41-48. With his job security getting low, if the Gators don't improve next season, this video will end just like the Purdue video did. We would also only end up signing 2 players this year, but they were both 5-star JUCO players who honestly look like they were ready to play. Year 4, the team is really starting to come together, thanks to my somewhat decent recruiting and our star player Thomas Haw coming back for his senior year. While this was looking like it could be potentially our best year yet, we did have 7 total teams in our conference that are ranked inside the top 25. With a pretty easy out-of-conference schedule, we would cruise into conference play with a solid record of 9-2. This would also help us land our first in-season recruit, Haim Danley, who just so happens to be a 5-star small forward Mr. Basketball out of Virginia. A huge sign for us early in the season. The team was playing great up to this point, as we had nearly 4 players scoring in double figures, and our recent recruits were paying dividends. Following a win against number 25 ranked LSU, we would take on the number 1 ranked Volunteers as they come to Gainesville. We would open the game with a lead, but eventually lost it before halftime. But we managed to keep it close. And in the second half, Tennessee Volunteers showed why they were the number 1 ranked team, as they would get a blowout win here in Gainesville by the score of 82-65. The team still showed plenty of promise, as after this loss to Tennessee, we would get hot and we would win our next 5 games, including 3 against teams that were ranked to start the season, and the number 12 ranked Aggies. But we would drop our next 4 games, including 2 of them being ranked ones. And of course, all of this happens before we travel to face the number 4 ranked Kentucky Wildcats. And while I did think we had the talent to compete with this team, I didn't expect to see us maintain a sizable lead much of the first half, which would eventually lead us to upsetting a top 5 team, 60-54, on their home court. We would finish the regular season with a 17-13 record, which isn't good enough to be a bubble team for us, but technically it is for Arkansas. Thankfully, we get the pleasure of playing Arkansas in the first round of the conference tournament. Being that we did beat this team twice in the regular season, I had the confidence to sim this game, and we would come out on top in a blowout win, 69-55, behind Thomas Hawes' 29 points and 12 rebounds. Next up, we'll be taking on the number 1 ranked Tennessee Volunteers for the 3rd time this season. We would jump out to a quick 5-point lead, but that wouldn't last long, as Tennessee would tie it right back up at 5 following this monster dunk by Johnson. This game was very close, as Tennessee was maintaining a 4-point lead with plays like this. But the Gators had no intentions of backing down, as we would erase their 4-point lead and tie the game with big plays on both sides of the ball. And with time winding down in the half, Nash would hit an easy shot for us to pull us within 1 point, 26-25 at the half. We would come out of the half firing to take back the lead for the first time since the opening minutes with this 3, but the Gators offense would go cold from here on out. But the defense was maintaining the lead. That was until this big 3 by the Volunteers to tie it up at 37 with only 7 minutes left in the game. And once again, it wouldn't be long until we would lose our lead behind this big 3 by the Volunteers. With the Gators offense cold, this next 3 by the Volunteers felt like it really could be the nail in the coffin with just under 5 minutes left to play. But just when all hope was lost for the Gators, the defense quickly started to come together, which would lead to some quick and easy points, which would also lead to an easy layup to tie the game, but he misses. This would be all good, as it would force a huge turnover on defense and get a second chance to tie the game. We get the ball into Thomas Hall, our best player's hand, and he misses as well. We would go on to lose by the score of 56-50, and maybe we should have gotten the ball into Ngannou's hands, as he had a team-high 17 on some extremely efficient shooting. Following this loss, we would not end up making neither the NCAA tournament or the NIT tournament. Disappointing end to Yurtman's best season at Florida so far. But on the bright side, with 2 years of consistent improvement and signing the number 9 class, we were able to retain our job as the Florida Gators head coach for the next 4 years. This was by far Yurtman's best recruiting class here at the University of Florida, and I had a lot of faith that this class could lead me to the promised land. Year 5, the team was looking better than ever, still extremely young, poised to make some noise in the coming years. The Gators are coming in at an 89 overall, by far the best we've had yet, and we're no longer the lowest overall team in the conference. This is great, because Yurtman's job security is still pretty low after the extension. Gave the boys a quick pep talk before the season, letting them know my job was on the line this year, so I needed to play better. Unfortunately, we would fall to 4-2 early in the year after back-to-back close games and losses against lowly FIU and Rice. Nonetheless, we would head into our first conference game pretty early in the season, this time against LSU. And this game would not be close, as we would beat the brakes off of LSU, hopefully setting the tone for conference play this year as we improve to 5-2. Heading to the brink before conference play begins, Deshaun Nash is our leading scorer with 16 points per game, while we sit at 9-3. And the team has improved all the way up to a 91 overall up to this point. After simming our first few conference games, we would improve to 11-4, which will take us to the University of Kentucky to take on the number 14 ranked Wildcats. We would have a lead early and managed to keep the game pretty close for a long time, as at half it was only a 1-point game. But the Wildcats would pull away in the second half and win by 10 points by the score of 63-53. A game it seems we really just let get away from us. Our win in the next game against Auburn would come at a cost, as we would lose our star center, Deshaun Nash, for an important part of the season. The buzz in Gainesville was starting to die down. And our win in the next game after that, against Georgia, would cause to be a fatal one as well, as we would lose Clemens for potentially the remainder of the season. And after all of this, travel to face number 10, Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Gators came out hot against the Bulldogs, as we led for much of the game, including deep into the second half. But before it was too late, the Bulldogs put together a run and go on to win 69-61. And even though we lost, it still gave me a lot of confidence knowing we played a great game without two of our best players. But to be honest, it doesn't get any easier, because after that game, we had to head to College Station to take on the number 16 ranked Aggies. In this game, you could tell we were just shorthanded, as from the jump we were fighting to get back in this one. And before you know it, this game was over. It was 76-62 Aggies. Following a loss to Ole Miss, we would fall to 13-8, slowly watching the season slip away. Thankfully, before our next game, we would get our star player Deshaun Nash back from injury in a crucial time to make a push for the tournament. After getting Nash back, we would go 5-3 with a big win over number 21 ranked LSU to finish the regular season 18-11. Good enough for 6th in the conference, a far cry better than where we have been, which gives us our rival Tennessee in the midst of a down year for them in the first round of the tournament. Nash leads the way for us this season with 16 points per game, while we had 3 others scoring in double figures. And once again, the Gators were on the outside looking into the bubble watch, this time while being ranked 51 in the RPI rankings. Heading into our game against the Volunteers, we get the news that Clemens will be back for his first game since breaking his hand a month ago. A huge get for us, as we are going to need to make a huge run in the conference tournament to make the NCAA tournament. And to be honest, this doesn't look like much of a game, as we jumped out to a 10-2 lead early, following this 3 by Collins. Wouldn't take long before we would extend the lead beyond 10, as with this 3 by Clemens, we hold a 16-4 lead. Much of the first half just showcased us managing our lead and slightly extending it as time went on, with shots like this from Capano. So when halftime came around, we had a huge lead, because after this 3 by Clemens, once again, Gators would go up 36-17 at the half. We would extend the lead all the way to 21 points in the second half as we coasted to a win. Despite a late push from the Volunteers, I saw them pull it to within a 10-point game, making it not look as bad as it really was. Next up, we had an LSU team that would beat twice during the season, giving me the confidence to just sim. We would go on to beat them for the 3rd time this year, behind Nash's 21 points, and advancing to face number 11 Mississippi State. Coming into this game, the Bulldogs are the clear favorite. They sit at 25-6, while already beating the 20-11 Gators in their only matchup of the season so far. The winner of this game will advance to the championship round of the conference tournament. This was looking like it could be a big game from Clemens, as he hits his 3rd straight 3 to open the game, tie it back up at 9. This game was remaining neck and neck for much of the first half. It would eventually lead into the half in a low-scoring ball game, tied up at 25 all. It wouldn't take long before we could start to put together a lead, as with this easy layup, some solid defense, we jump out to a 4-point lead. That's the highest of the night for either team. Following this huge 3 by Collins, who's also having a huge second half, we would extend our lead all the way to 7 points. This lead would help propel us to finish out the game on top, making it back-to-back upsets against ranked teams here in the conference tournament. It definitely helped that 3 of our best players showed out with at least 13 points apiece. With that being said, we'll be taking on the number 7 ranked Texas A&M Aggies in the conference tournament championship game. And the Aggies are no slouch, as they are a near perfect 99 overall, The Gators would open the game with the lead after this basket by Thibodeau, giving him 7 straight points to open the game. The Gators would continue to play well for much of the first half and extend their lead all the way up to 7 points, but the Aggies would claw their way back before the end of the first half and make it a 1-point game. The Gators, however, kept playing until the whistle blew. This would lead to some quick, easy points to extend the lead right before the half, as we now lead 25-19. Yertman's halftime speech really got the Gators going, because with some big hustle plays on both sides of the ball, the Gators would manage to push their lead beyond 10 points. And the Aggies would never be able to recover from this, as the Gators would go on to win this game in blowout fashion, 60-38, officially making the Florida Gators the conference champs once again. This gives us a guaranteed bid to our first NCAA tournament as the head coach of the Gators. Thibs will lead the way for us with an efficient 15 points. After taking down 3 straight ranked teams, Coach Earp and the Gators were expecting to have some decent seeding as the SEC champs, in which we would get as the Florida Gators coming as the 8th seed and will face off against 9-seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs, who are 1 overall lower than them. With the Bulldogs being low overall than us, I decided to sim this game, in which we would come out on top in blowout fashion once again, 84-63. The Gators were getting hot at just the right time. Heading into the second round, we'll get the luxury of facing the number 1 seeded Virginia Cavaliers, who are only a 95 overall, not the best team we've faced so far. Sadly, the Gators will get off to a slow start in this one, because after this 3 by the Cavs, the Gators will be down by almost 10 points early in this one. But just when all hope was starting to be lost, we would go on a 2-minute run, take the lead, 13-12. The Gators' offense would start to slow down from this point, which led to the Cavaliers taking their lead back and extending it up to nearly 10 points once again. Once again, Yertman must have given his boys a solid halftime speech. They come out hustling, leading in some easy points to close in on the Cavaliers' lead. It wouldn't be long before we would see the Gators tie the ball game up at 40-all. This game was going back and forth all night long, and with this huge 3 by the Cavaliers, with only 1 minute remaining, it looked like this game could potentially be going to overtime. But Yertman and the Gators weren't thinking overtime, as this layup by our big man was going to be the game winner, a huge upset win against the number 1 seed Virginia Cavaliers, which will advance us up to the Sweet 16, where we'll be taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs for the 3rd time this season, giving the winner bragging rights over who truly is the better team this year. Now, if we had won this one, I would have watched the Arizona game, so I decided to sim this one, but it was a mistake, as this game was neck and neck the whole way through, but when it came down to the wire, we didn't have the same luck as last game, as we followed the Bulldogs this time by just 1 point, 68-67, ending our season and our Cinderella run at the Sweet 16. The Bulldogs would go on to lose in the Final Four, and the Michigan Wolverines will be crowned tournament champs. Behind Yertman's best season at Florida, he would get an upgrade point, and you know I had to max out recruiting. Although we will be losing a lot of depth players, our star players are returning for a chance at running it back. Coming into year 6, we open at 92 overall, poised to make another run in the NCAA tournament, as this is by far the best we've come in opening the year. While we didn't open the season ranked, it wouldn't take long before the Gators were put in the top 25 for the first time under Coach Earp. The Gators were really starting to make a name for themselves this season, as they were able to jump all the way up to number 17 in this week's poll. This would bring us to our game against the number 12 ranked Villanova Wildcats. A great game by both teams that would see it come down to the wire, and the Wildcats would win 73-70. With conference play set to begin soon, our team was being led by Jesus Clemens, 16 points per game, while we still have some other solid contributors. Things in Gainesville weren't looking pretty. After dropping our first few conference games, it wasn't going to get any easier knowing we had the 24th ranked Aggies coming into town. Nonetheless, the boys suited up for war in this one, and the outcome was never really in doubt, as the Gators were going to win this one in blowout fashion once again, 73-59. This time against one of the better teams in the SEC. Hopefully, we can use this win to build some momentum and get the season back on track. In which we did, as we finished the season a respectable 17-10, continuously improving each and every year. Jesus Clemens would be our leading scorer, while we also had 2 more guys averaging 12.5 apiece. The Gators finished at rank 6 in the #1 ranked conference in all of college basketball, which means for the first time we'll be at least on the bubble watch heading into the conference tournament. A win or two here in the conference tournament will all but guarantee us a spot in the NCAA tournament. The first round of the tournament put us up against a lowly 11-win LSU team that I had the confidence to just sim, which brings us to the second round against our newly formed rival, the #6 Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Bulldogs came out hot as they would open the game climbing to a pretty sizable lead. They would use this lead to just coast to a victory in the end, despite a late push from us to bring it within 5. As we fall out of the conference tournament in the second round, 65-61. Thankfully, this wouldn't be the end of our season, as we were selected as the 10th seed, while getting a great matchup against the 7th seed at Wake Forest. But if we do manage to come out on top, looks like our rival Bulldogs will be waiting for us in the second round. After a not so easy first round game that would see us only come out on top by 1 point, we would head into the second round to face the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Coach Yerp and the Gators were looking to avenge last season's Sweet 16 loss here, and everything was looking good as we would jump out to a 4-point lead early following this easy layup by EK. But it wouldn't be long before the Bulldogs would finally show up and take the lead, following this 3 by Sargent. This game would continuously go back and forth, with no team able to gain any separation, which would lead us into halftime at a tie ball game, 24-all. The second half was not looking good for the Gators, as we would come out flat-footed once again and watch as the Bulldogs climb to a 6-point lead. But it wasn't over for the Gators, as we would fall right back into this game, following this huge 3 by Thibs, under 6 minutes left in the game. Shortly after his last 3, Thibs would bang down another 3 to pull us ahead, 38-36. The Gators were able to push this lead all the way to 8, with some great hustle plays on defense that just led to some easy transition offense. This will be enough to help propel the Gators to the win, upsetting the #2 seed and our rivals, while advancing back to the Sweet 16 for the second consecutive year. Thibs would lead the way for us with a double-double. Heading into the Sweet 16, the Gators will be facing off against an IO team that, just like them, probably shouldn't be here up to this point. Nonetheless, we were still, without a doubt, the underdogs heading into this game, which would prove everyone wrong once again, as we were going to win this game pretty easily by the score of 87-74, advancing to the Elite 8 for the first time under Yerp Man. Following this win, we would go on to take on the 8-seeded Ohio State Buckeyes, who managed a few upsets of their own along the way. And Ohio State really just looked like the better team here, as we would fall in the Elite 8 on the opposite side of a blowout. Once again, Coach Yerp will lose some key players, to the point we probably won't make it as far next year. But with the constant improvement from Coach Yerp, the future is still very bright in Gainesville, especially after this solid class. The team was still looking rock solid, and the expectations to make it back to the tournament were still there. But after this loss early in the season against the Santa Clara Broncos, I was starting to think we were in store for a tough season. We would then have a conference game pretty early in the season, as we welcomed the #9 ranked Tide to town. This team just proved why they're a top 10 in the nation, as they completely just blew us out from the jump. We would go on to lose this game by a total of 23 points, in an ugly showing at home. Heading into conference play, the Gators are sitting at 9-3, coming off a loss to the Miami Redhawks. Chris Bathy would be our leading scorer up to this point with 16 points per game, while Pinkala, Bogans, and Danley are all putting together a solid season. Following this loss to #9 ranked Kentucky, the Gators would fall to 10-6 after dropping 3 out of their first 4 conference games. As the season came winding down, we sat at 15-14, far worse than any previous year, truly taking a step back. And knowing it would take a miracle to make the NCAA tournament, we decided to just sim the conference tournament to get into next season. Bathy and Pinkala finished the year as the only players averaging above 10 points, while Danley did play very well on both sides of the ball. The good news is we'll be returning every starter besides Bathy, meaning next year really could be our year. Even more good news is that for the first time under Coach Yerpman, the Gators finally have some all-conference honors, and Bathy on the second team and Petway on the freshman team. Coming into year 8, the Gators are back at a 93 overall, and the team was looking rock solid with team unity and game experience. Hopefully, this could lead us back to the promised land. Year 8 would be a solid bounce-back year for the Gators, as they would finish the regular season an impressive 18-9, the best under Coach Yerpman. Well, I thought this was good enough to have a guaranteed bid in the tournament, but we're still sitting in the bubble watch come conference tournament time. And we probably should have paid better attention to this team, because they did come out here and beat us in the first round of the tournament, now leaving our chance at the big dance up for grabs. Our leading scorer for the year was Pincala, while Danley and Concorgo helped form a solid big three. Coming into the selection show, I was pretty skeptical, as being a bubble team that loses in the first round of your conference tournament is never a good look. But by the grace of God, the Gators were going dancing this year. As well, we'll be taking on the number 6 seeded Michigan Wolverines. This game was tight early on, no team giving an inch. As with this 3 by the Wolverines, it would be a tie ball game, 7 points. However, the Gators were the first team to put something together and pull away a little. As with this basket by Pedway, we would go up 17-9 early in the first half. But it wouldn't be long before the Wolverines did the same thing, tied the game up at 17 behind this big 3. The Gators would ride into the half with the lead, 34-26, behind this easy layup by our big man. The Gators would control much of the second half after another easy layup by our big man, followed up by a huge 3 on our very next possession. The Wolverines would try their best to get back into this one, but the damage was already done. And the Gators would eventually walk out of here with an upset win over the Wolverines, 65-53. And although he didn't have a great shooting night, the near double-double from Pincala played a huge part in the win tonight. The second round will put us up against the 3-seeded Washington Huskies. While the Huskies did lead for much of the first half, it would be a tie ball game at 39 by the time it did roll around. The second half was much of the same, and it was neck and neck the whole way through. But in the end, the Gators would come out on top by 2 points, 67-65, this time upsetting the number 3 seed. Next up will be the hardest matchup so far, against 2-seeded Duke. A game I really wanted to watch in-game, but for some reason, the Duke team just kept being invisible. After some time becoming frustrated, I decided to sim this game, where we would somehow come out on top by 3 points. This win brings us back to the Elite 8, where we'll be facing off against SEC foe, the LSU Tigers, who I was hoping to watch play in-game also, but the game had other plans, and now my team wasn't visible. At this point, I was annoyed, and just decided to sim the game, where we would come out on top once again. After coming back and trying again later, I would finally be able to watch us play in-game. This time, in the Final Four, against our in-state rivals, the 5-seeded Florida State Seminoles. We're going to be by far the best team we face in this tournament, as they come in with 100 overall. This game, we'll see us take the lead first, as with this and one by Danley, we would jump to a 5-point lead early. But, before you know it, the Seminoles would go on a run of their own, take the lead with this 3. This game would be neck and neck for much of the first half, but by the time the buzzer rang, the Gators would be in front, 28-24. The Gators would come out of half, continuing to play well, behind another solid Europe man speech, as they extend their lead all the way to 8 points. And it wouldn't be long before the Gators pushed their lead beyond 10 points deep into the second half. The Seminoles would never be able to recover from this, as the Gators would go on to win 61-52 and advance to the national championship as an 11 seed, while also claiming to be the best team in the state of Florida. Heading into the championship game, our Big 3 has continued to play well through this magical Cinderella run, and they just need one more to join immortality. We'll be taking on the 2-seeded Louisville Cardinals in the championship game this year. And thankfully for us, this is not going to be the best team we've faced all year, giving me a lot of hope thinking we can actually come out with this one. The Gators would open the game on a 6-2 run behind these free throws by the big man, Richards. And this one was starting to get ugly quick. As with this basket by our big man, Robinson, the Gators push out to a 10-point lead late first half. Following this near buzzer beater 3 by Bogans, we would nearly have a 20-point lead at the half of the championship game. Cardinal would try their best to get back into this game by starting to shoot the 3 ball a lot more and making some. But it just wasn't enough, as our offense was absolutely rolling up to this point as we increase our lead following this huge and one. And to be honest, I don't think anyone could have predicted this game to end as lopsided as it did. Nonetheless, Florida Gators are national champions once again, this time in absolute blowout fashion, 69-38. Carrington absolutely balled out in this championship game as he finished with 19 points, while Pincala would put up a respectable 12 points, 6 assists to go along with 2 steals. Officially completing the rebuild in 8 total seasons was a challenge and a roller coaster to say the least. But we did it, while having 0 players receive any kind of postseason honors in our championship year. although we would see Pinkilla go on to get drafted.